Welcome back to the channel, guys, and the first thing I want to say is please be respectful in the comments. Let's have a chat. Let's talk about it. I want to talk about issues in rugby and talk about both the positive and the negative on this channel. And today I want to talk about something that may be just a bit controversial. Having watched all of the Nations Championship so far, this is basically like a mini World Cup. And some of you guys are going to say, no, it's not, because there's only 12 teams. Realistically, you tell me, is there anyone outside of these 12 teams playing in the Nations Championship that will win a World Cup while you and me are still alive? The answer is probably no. So by the time you've removed Japan, Fiji, Italy, maybe Australia, unfortunately, maybe Argentina, maybe Scotland, you're only left really with France, England, Ireland. You can remove Wales also for now. France, England, Ireland, New Zealand and South Africa that are real title contenders for 2027 and for 2031, in my opinion, and probably also for the 5 or 6 World Cups to come, unless something drastic changes in these countries that are playing in the Nations Championship. I do not see, unfortunately, Scotland, Australia, Argentina, Italy, being able to lift a Rugby World Cup before I turn 85. So basically, my point is, this is kind of like a mini World Cup, really. It's just that the southern teams can't play each other yet, and the northern teams can't play each other yet. But we'll see how it goes. I don't know if the Nations Championship is every year. I don't think it is, right? Or is it? Is this something that they do every year now? Or are we going to go back to the 3-test series That's the stuff I liked more. I don't really like this Nations Championship. I think it's a bit hectic travel-wise. A team shouldn't have to go to South Africa, then fly to New Zealand, and then fly to Argentina. I think it's a little bit crazy. For the southern teams, you don't quite have that problem because in Europe, everything's pretty much next to each other. Going from Paris to London is the equivalent of probably going from Durban to Johannesburg. I mean, literally. So what are your thoughts? Do you think that this Nations Championship is of any use? Or maybe we should have a World Cup a bit more regularly, right? Because what are we all looking forward to as rugby fans? We're looking forward to the World Cup. You could have the argument that changing the World Cup structure isn't a good thing. We should leave it as it's always traditionally been, every 4 years. But then what do you do in the meantime? Because club rugby doesn't sell, unless you're in France, doesn't sell as much as the international rugby. We want to see more international rugby and we want to see more meaningful games. Don't you agree? I'm not sure I'm too interested in Scotland versus Fiji or Wales versus Fiji or, Japan versus Italy. To be honest, guys, there's a few games during this Nations Championship that I wasn't too keen on. I also wasn't too keen on South Africa versus Wales. We're talking about the strongest team in the competition and the strongest team in the world facing the weakest team in the competition, arguably. I get it, you have to play it because that's the rules of the Nations Championship, right? The southern teams play the northern teams. But do we really want to see those games? Or do we want to see South Africa play against France, New Zealand play against England? Those kind of games that we'll see in a few months from here. But maybe if we saw those games a bit more regularly, there'd be a bit more, hype around these games. I wasn't too keen on watching New Zealand-Italy at 8 a.m. in the morning local time. Maybe you are, maybe I'm wrong. That'd be the start of a conversation in the comments. So what do we do to change rugby? What do we do to make rugby a bit more exciting and for there to be more fixtures around the games that we like and less fixtures around games that we maybe don't like? Now, I'm not trying to disrespect any fan watching this from Japan, from Fiji, from Wales, from Italy. I wish you only the best. I would love to see Japan compete like they did in 2019. I would love to see Fiji compete like they did in the Rugby World Cup in 2023. But these teams have fallen off a little bit. I would like to see Italy compete a bit better in these, away fixtures. They've shown some really good grit in the Six Nations, but you don't want to back Italy when they're traveling away. They're very weak when they're away. Proof is that they lost to Georgia away a couple of years ago. They've just lost to Japan away. They'd probably lose against Fiji if they played in Fiji. Italy are very weak when they're on the trot. So yeah, how do we do this? Do we put a World Cup every 2 years? Maybe like in football, where they have a Euro and then a World Cup. Some kind of... The thing is, the Euro is kind of like the Six Nations, right? And the Rugby Championship is the equivalent in the South. So I kind of like this series where you take the top 12 teams and they play against each other. But there's something missing. I don't like the fact that southern teams can't play against other southern teams. If New Zealand and South Africa both finish unbeaten, but South Africa have 30 points and New Zealand 29, for example, I think that they should play against each other in the final. Those are the two best teams in the tournament. They should play against each other in the final. So why Why make a fuss about North versus South? Because that's just a rivalry that's been invented on the internet. You know, a lot of Southern fans especially, and I'm not trying to criticize you guys saying rugby, you know, belongs to the South, etc. Why don't we just unite and agree that watching France play against New Zealand is a good match, regardless of where they come from on the fucking map, right? Apologies for the language. And same for, you know, South Africa, England. I think that's a great rivalry, right? It's always been a historically good game. South Africa versus New Zealand is a great game. Why don't we, you know, have that in the final if they both deserve it? So I'm a bit confused with this Rugby Championship. I don't know what a Rugby Nations Championship. I don't know what to say. You know, after this first round, you can clearly see that the Boks and the All Blacks are dominating. And if they make it a clean 6-for-6, they should play each other in the final. So how about we rebrand this Rugby Nations Championship to sort of a mini World Cup every year? Wouldn't that be interesting? Sort of a title of who's the best team every year, but without giving, you know, without having two pools that are of different caliber. You know, I think it's harder for South Africa and New Zealand to finish first because they're in the same pool, right? I mean, and then you could argue that France have it easier in the northern pool because they're miles ahead of the other teams as of right now. They ran New Zealand very close with a very weakened side. And I hope they will go full guns against Argentina, the Boks, and Fiji, which they should. I think they should beat Fiji. They might definitely beat Argentina. The Boks will be an interesting take. But I can tell you as a half Frenchman that went to see South Africa play and beat the French comfortably last year, France won't have it that way again. All right, we're going to come at you guys. And before you get mad in the comments because I've said that France have a chance, yes, they do, guys. I love South African rugby and I think that they're completely on top of the world, but you are not unbeatable yet. And although you're as close as it gets to unbeatable, you should still view every game as a challenge. I heard a lot of people saying negative things about the performance against Wales. You won 43-0 in very difficult conditions against a very respectable Welsh side who gave it all on the day. You won 43-0. There's no reason to be negative. Do you get what I mean? So yeah, look, I'm not too interested in this Rugby Nations Championship. I mean, I'll definitely tune in, of course, because that's what's on offer. But I'd like to see, you know, teams getting tested against each other at their level, like South Africa playing France in a 3-game series. How about that? How about another All Blacks versus England? You know, I love that. How about Italy, Argentina? Wouldn't that be good? That's sort of a similar kind of fair contest. You know, Australia, Scotland, I kind of like that too. How about Fiji, Wales, and maybe Japan? Well, I was going to say Japan, Ireland, then you forget Ireland. But anyway, do you know what I mean? We probably would more. I would enjoy seeing those fixtures a bit more regularly than just random fixtures like South Africa versus Fiji or whatnot in this competition. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. Is a Rugby World Cup every 2 years a good idea? Or would you get bored? Would it be not a good idea? I would love a Rugby World Cup every 2 years. Why not? It should be fought more often. You know, you don't get to see many in a lifetime. Life is short and we want to see Rugby World Cups. Or something that's more like a World Cup. Like a mini, maybe not top 12, but a top 8 face-off. You know, every of the top 8 during a year plays against each other. There's a pool and first plays against second in the grand finale. Wouldn't that be good? You let me know, guys. It was a pleasure.